All parties should exercise restraint and stop aggravating the situation. That's Chinese President Xi Jinping to U.S. President Donald Trump in a phone conversation as tensions are once again flaring between Washington and Pyongyang. Let us urge North Korea to avoid any kind of provocative actions. Now that's Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in a phone conversation with Donald Trump. The phone calls come amid growing concerns that North Korea may test its nuclear weapons or ICBMs to mark an important Army anniversary. Will Kim Jong-un hit the nuclear button? And how advanced is North Korea's nuclear weapons program? The topic of our discussions on Peninsula 24 today. Let's get it rolling. To our viewers in Korea and around the world, welcome to Peninsula 24. I'm Moon Gon-young. And joining me in the studio, as always, is Dr. Kim Chang-soo, a Research Fellow Emeritus at Korea Institute for Defense Analyses. Thank you, as always, for being here.
Great to be here.
And to my left, Dr. Seo Kyun-ryeol, Professor of Nuclear Engineering at Seoul National University. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good morning to you.
Now, fresh off an immense North Korean parade that revealed the arsenal of intercontinental ballistic missiles, South Korea and its allies are bracing for the possibility of a bigger and even bigger North Korea's follow-up act. And satellite imageries by the U.S. have shown increased activity at North Korea's nuclear power plant or nuclear test site. And North Korea's Kim Jong-un has said that its ICBM launches are in its final stages of preparation. So how likely is North Korean provocation? Now, joining us via Skype first is Jenny Town, Assistant Director of U.S. Korea Institute at Johns Hopkins University and Managing Editor of 38 North. So as we speak right now, are we seeing any signs of an imminent nuclear test in North Korea?
Well, as we reported in 38 North, we have been watching the site very closely, and we have seen signs that are consistent with test preparation over the past couple of weeks. As far as we can tell, the site seems to be prepped for a test. However, from the imagery itself, we cannot tell exactly when a test will take place. So, that's more of a political decision or a technical decision, but the site certainly seems to be ready to handle a test at any time.
Right. So what is the expectation among regular contributors of 38 North? Is it likely that North Korea will conduct a nuclear test soon? And if so, how powerful do we expect the test to be?
I think among our analysts, again, it's very difficult to tell the timing. So it's something where I think we do expect a nuclear test at some point. But the fact that North Korea has not actually announced when they would actually do a test or if they would even do a test, they still have room to back out of a decision. And so without actually losing face in that process, because they never have actually said when they were going to test. I think in this next round, we will be watching very closely to see what the yield of a sixth nuclear test is to try and figure out, how far advanced is North Korea's nuclear weapons program. Are they really working with advanced designs or still with the fission cores? And I think that's really what we're looking for in the future.
Well, Jenny Town, Managing Editor at 38 North, thank you so much for linking up with us today. We appreciate it. Now, gentlemen, before we delve further into the specifics of North Korea's nuclear weapons program, remind us, why is it now that we're expecting some kind of a nuclear test, may that be a nuclear test or an ICBM test, sometime around the 3rd or 4th week of April?
I think because North Korea has been known to develop this nuclear weapons program for the last several decades, but now the timing of another nuclear test, maybe at the time of 3rd or 4th week of this April, is very important because initially North Korea announced that in their New Year's remarks, and they said they're going to enter the final stage of the preparation for ICBM. That's really caught the attention of the Washington military planner because now they're facing the threats not only about their allies like Japan and Korea, but increasingly the continental United States will be maybe the targets of North Korea's ICBM. They really shocked the United States, its politicians and also military planners. That's why it has gotten a tremendous American attention, but also worldwide attention as well. But again, the timing is not known yet. It's an unknown fact, but we're sure they're going to do another test. So that's why we have kept the highest level of military readiness in case there is another nuclear test by Pyongyang. But also we have to assume that if you go back to the story, the Kim Jong-un's remarks that we are going to further sophisticate on weapons, that is true. But because we have not recognized North Korea as a nuclear weapon state as yet. So that's why they're trying to impress us with more military capability, meaning the nuclear weapons and also missile capability as well. Missile capability is very important because it's the means that can deliver this kind of warheads. So that's why we have been paying sharpest attention to this particular event. Maybe on the 85th anniversary of the North Koreans founding of the Korean, KPA, Korean Armed Forces, and also maybe this coming Saturday rather, when the Trump presidency comes to the first 100 days. So that's maybe they're looking for some specific timing that can give the maximum impression, that we are the one. Don't forget us. Don't ever try to touch us. We really care about our independence and capability. So that's why really they're trying to prove their capability and also resolve intention that we will do something if you strike first. That's a very strong message, and that's why we paid a lot of attention to this, not only from South Korea to the United States, but Japan, and increasingly from China as well. Whole international community is paying tremendous attention to what will be the next step for the Pyongyang leadership.
So flexing muscles, I would say.
Yeah, sure.
Now, so North Korea claims to have conducted 5 nuclear tests, and I think the global consensus is that they have conducted 5 nuclear tests, and that this one could be the 6th. Why is a 6th round of tests significant?
I don't think 6th round makes any sense. It's all because they've been not so successful. If they take a look at those yields, they started out with probably under 1 KT, the first round, all the way to barely 10 kilotons, which is equivalent to trinitrotoluene, TNT, which is conventional high explosive, less than 10,000 kilograms, actually tons, in fact. So it's not good enough. They have to really pass the sort of red line, and the red line is supposed to be at least 100,000 tons, just 100 KT. So there's a long way to go. So they've got homework to do, in fact, and it's going to be serious business from upgrading from, say, 10 KT to 100 KT. And that's what they're going to shoot for this time, and April may turn out to be a cruel month, according to T.S. Eliot. So this is the right time for them to do something about it.
Sure. The latest estimate presented by a nuclear expert in the U.S. is that Pyongyang is believed to have 33 kilograms of separated plutonium and between 175 and 645 kilograms of weapons-grade uranium. And that would be enough to make anywhere between 13 to 30 nuclear weapons. Does that estimate seem plausible to you?
Yes and no, in the sense that the number of tons or kilograms is everybody's guess, in fact. When it comes to uranium, we have to be looking at the size of their facilities. Nobody's aware of how big their size really is underground. And if it comes to plutonium, we have to be checking on their number of operational days. And that one is, again, beyond our knowledge. So, okay, fine. Just put them all together. It could be probably 300 and even 500 kilograms total. But then again, it's good enough to make probably 20 to 50 kilograms, depending upon their skill. Because if you're really skilled, then you can make up one bomb with probably 2 kilograms plutonium and 5 kilograms uranium, not 6, not 25. So that should really be increasing the number of warheads because they can make up small ones, light ones, miniaturized ones. So I would say that their number is close to 50 to even 75 warheads that could possibly be made. So it's a pretty scary story over there.
Right. So it really depends on their capability,
Exactly.
I suppose. Right. Dr. Kim, you talked about intercontinental ballistic missiles, and there's a reason, like you said, why North Korea keeps on testing its ICBMs. Of course, like you said, to ensure the delivery of these nuclear bombs to their target areas. Does anyone really know how far off North Korea is to fielding functional nuclear ICBMs? And what's the conventional wisdom or accepted range or best guess?
You know, because it is very difficult because we don't have any hard data in our hands. And we are just guessing, and from the tests they have done, from all the tests they have done, nuclear tests and also missile tests, we have come to a conclusion it is safe to assume that North Korea has somehow successfully miniaturized warheads, small enough to fit on a missile. And also, it is very difficult because once you recognize North Korea as a nuclear weapon state, there's a lot of consequences we should look for because everybody in its neighbor, like Korea, Japan, and even Taiwan, will do the same in response. So this is a huge proliferation of nuclear weapons. So this is also the very difficult question, not only for South Korea, but also for the United States and eventually the whole international community. So this is, as Professor so exactly, very technically mentioned, it will be very difficult for anybody to exactly come to amount of the number of warheads, number of missiles they have. I think one thing we should consider from a political science is they are doing something bluffing, examinations, and also deceptive tactics. Because when you are inferior and you face strong powers like the United States, South Korea, and China and Japan, it is quite natural to assume this small country like North Korea will do something extraordinary, that bluffing their capability, out of proportion, so that they have really threatened the United States. Don't ever try to hit us because we are this much capable. So there is, unless we have a very hard data, nobody can be assured that this exact amount of capability North Korea has right now. But we have to reasonably assume they may, kind of do some bluffing and also deception. But on the other hand, it will be much reasonable for us to consider the worst case scenarios.
Right,
yes.
To assume that they do in fact have
That's
many nuclear weapons.
Right.
Would you agree with Dr. Kim in the sense that this could be bluffing tactic, this could be a deceptive tactic?
Agreed, in the sense that they are not in a fast track, if I may say, because you see, if you take a look at their test history, it's been more than 11 years by now. And then no country has ever spent these many years to come up with just one warhead. And they are just saying it by their mouth, but not by their hands. We are not sure, nobody's sure if they do have real one nuke on top of the missile.
Right.
So even Pakistan has done it within just a matter of a couple of days. They were done, 6 tests. But now it's been more than 11 years. They're really struggling. It's like a slow burner. So they really have to bring it up to speed. So there's a bad reason. Actually, they're in bad need to do something. And then in that regard, I think they're getting there, but very slowly and then very frustratingly so. From the very technical point of view, I believe they are not on a good track. Their patience is actually almost being exhausted by now.
What about the possibility of Pyongyang having a thermonuclear weapon? I understand that this is a much dangerous and scary weapon, thermonuclear weapon. What is it and why is it all the more worrisome?
Because thermonuclear weapons is the right terminology, aka hydrogen bomb. So really serious stuff because you have to be talking about millions of degrees of temperatures, actually tens of millions, even 100 million degrees, much hotter than the interior of the sun. So it's not something that anybody can do it. Republic, South Korea can do it, but maybe not. So that's probably decide that they're bluffing, because I don't think, according to their industrial level, we can safely assume that they're not at the level of talking about hydrogen bomb.
Last time they did claim that they tested hydrogen bomb.
Exactly. But again, I'm coming from the engineering side and technical side, and if I take a look at their industrial level and then the findings, no. And if the yield, barely 10 kilotons, which is 10,000 tons of TNT, that's not even close. It's supposed to be 100. So that means at least 10 times bigger. That may have been the case, but as far as I'm concerned, they're having trouble with raising the temperature, they're having trouble with raising the pressure, and also they're having problem with actually getting the materials in. Hydrogen, heavy ones, deuterium, tritium. It's not something that they can get. We can get them, but they may not be able to do so. So that means that they don't have any seed, so they are not in a position to be talking about the thermonuclear warhead yet. Not so fast.
So
I concur with Professor Seo, because when they said they successfully tested a hydrogen bomb, I think our conclusion was that's false. The best something we can imagine out of this kind of nuclear test was what we called boosting nuclear fissile bomb, which may be considered as a kind of hydrogen bomb. It's not about a hydrogen bomb per se, so it's much more lower than that kind of capability. But again, because North Korea is a small country, they have to do everything that comes to their way, including bluffing and deception, and also gradually increasing military and nuclear and missile capability. That's true. But taken all together, it's a combination of deception and also bluffing, and also real advances in their technologies as well. But so that's why, even though they claimed they successfully tested a hydrogen bomb, we didn't take it as a real thing, and it should be independently verified. It was their own claim, but it should be independently verified by the outside world, including the United States and South Korea. That's why we are watching very carefully about if there is any advance in their nuclear and missile capability as well. But so far, we have not been persuaded.
So what are the immediate challenges that remain for North Korea's nuclear weapons program?
Because so far they've been really talking about their own love story. I don't buy it, nobody buys it. So that now their task is to make all the world to come to them and listen to them. And then there's again a good reason for Kim Jong-un to be showing off, this time for real, once and for all, that they do have something really formidable. So they could be basically assured, wow, there's no joke. But again, boosted bomb, again, if it were a boosted bomb, again, the yield must have been much greater, maybe 10 times greater. Hydrogen bomb, 100 times greater. So that's why we're talking about maybe a couple of more years to go down the road. Then they may be able to say so, but not now.
So you two both agree that, in fact, this could be North Korea is overrated in terms of its nuclear weapons capabilities.
Pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. Overstatement, over bluffing, because that's what they really need right now, because they're facing such a huge, formidable allies out there.
But at the same time, we should really prepare for the worst and assume that they do, in fact, have nuclear weapons, and that we should be able to counter that in some sense.
I know that it's always a good idea to be coming from the conservative side, but again, we don't have to be panicking with nothing that actually, as far as my eyes are concerned, is not clear and present danger yet. It might be there, but it's not quite clear. They didn't make the point clear enough, so that we have to buy this time and then just try to turn them down as far as we can. Probably President Trump and President Xi Jinping might be in their way to really turning them down, so that Kim Jong-un is not going to think about any more nuclear testing or launch missile, because they may be coming from the cyber side. The Americans may be thinking about cyber attack, so we have to be scaring them off the table, and then we can come back to the dialogue.
Well, the reason why I asked about the significance of a sixth nuclear test before Dr. Seo and Dr. Kim, because after the fifth nuclear test, both Pakistan and India earn the recognition of a nuclear weapon state. So I was wondering whether, if there is a possibility that after presumably a sixth nuclear test by North Korea, if there is ever a possibility that they could be granted that status of a nuclear state.
My answer to that question is almost impossible. Highly unlikely that we're going to recognize North Korea as a nuclear weapon state, because as I told you, it has huge, security ramification consequences for the just neighboring countries, not South Korea, but Japan and Korea, Japan and even Taiwan. And it will have a tremendous we have to modify our tactics vis-a-vis North Korea, because once we recognize North Korea as a nuclear weapon state, we have to change our, military strategy and everything, weapon system as well. But going back to the Pakistani case, we have a lot of misperception. And Pakistan was recognized as a nuclear weapon state after those 6 nuclear tests on 2 days back in 1988. I think there's a lot of mistake, because North Korea and Pakistan was recognized as a de facto nuclear weapons only after 1991, after all rounds of sanctions vis-a-vis Pakistan, and they vowed to stop any activity of proliferating this kind of WMDs to the outside world, particularly the terrorist groups. So after they make vows, and they show that we have the resolve to just confine our nuclear capability vis-a-vis our arch enemy, which is India. With that kind of assurance, they were given a kind of, not de facto, not de jure, nuclear weapon state. So it is a very painstaking job to get that kind of a recognition from the outside world. And the United States is not willing to give any nuclear, that kind of recognition to North Korea, even though they will gradually show their capability. But we know we are much more capable, and given the kind of, the phenomenon in this part of the world, like domino effects, it is very unlikely that we're going to grant that kind of state to North Korea.
Well, I want to engineer this question in a more technical sense to you, Dr. Seo. So, do you think that North Korea, should it conduct a 6th nuclear test, would have enough nuclear capabilities to show the world that they are, in fact, they do deserve the status of a nuclear state?
I don't think there's anything like deserving the position, because as far as their chances for joining the nuclear club, 0, period. Because the United States and all those countries with they're having those weapons, they said that's it. They're the club. But other than that, non-club members, no welcome, not in time, not anymore. So maybe de facto country might be a possibility, but other than that, nothing more, nothing less. So that's it.
Right, so from a technical perspective, North Korea's nuclear weapons capability overrated, and from a diplomatic and international order kind of perspective as well, North Korea will never be recognized as a nuclear state. I think that is our conclusion. And, my concluding point actually is a question that I ask myself when I look at this North Korea's nuclear situation, is that we may be overlooking this North Korea's nuclear missiles program, because they prove the old adage of little knowledge is a dangerous thing. So because we don't know how much knowledge these nuclear scientists are, in fact, they could, in the process of testing these nuclear bombs or ICBMs, they could lead to a catastrophic accident even.
That's a very plausible scenario, because the United States has been suffering a lot from those mishappenings. And then things that I'm not sure how many of them they might already have, but it's being kept in secret because it's a pretty much seclusive society and nobody can get in there and take to the bottom truth of the matter as far as I'm concerned. So that means there must have been, and there may be even more catastrophes somewhere underground, somewhere on the mountains, in the caves. And so that's a real possibility. And that's the real clear and present danger that I'm talking about. And it's even more formidable and more scary than the bombs themselves. So that's something that we have to keep in mind.
Right, and the next couple of days and couple of weeks should be a really turning point for North Korea and the rest of the world should they conduct another nuclear test. So we will keep a close eye on that. In the meantime, we also need to make sure that North Korea stay safe and does not make these catastrophic mishappenings through those tests. Well, that is all the time we have, actually. Thank you, gentlemen, for your insights today. And thank you for staying with us all throughout. And I'll see you back here next week, because if it's midway through the week, it's Peninsula 24. If you want to find out what's happening in and around the Korean Peninsula, it's Peninsula 24.